First question is, what does the Democratic Party in New Mexico and the National Party need to do to win elections in 2018, 2020? This was submitted by our esteemed chair, and so we'll start with you, Richard.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. The party, state and national, in my view, needs to communicate effectively with less engaged voters. And there are really two techniques for doing that. One is repetition. For instance, Houston got flipped by repeating a message, disciplined, all the groups got together and repeated the same message for a good long period of time. The Better Deal, which is rolled out initially with the Progressive Economic Platform, will have some other issues coming up, is part of the effort to put us on message. I know something Democrats never do, but put us on a message term that we can begin using and repeating for that purpose. The other is, this I think Lynn mentioned, which is the one-on-one communications. We need to go out, we need to talk to less engaged voters one-on-one, and that entails a conversation which actually involves listening. We need to hear what people care about and then try and connect that to our programs or candidates. If we start talking about issue names, program names, numbers, most people tune out in about 15 seconds. So we need to go out and actually listen to people, so it's a heavy one-on-one canvassing around the state and country.
I was on a picket line in the vet home a couple of days ago. This is a picket line voice. I just got to say, I'm not a Democrat. I don't claim to be a big admirer of the Democratic Party, but I'm not one. And whatever the Democrats are going to do, it's going to be completely different, because Democrats have been getting their ass kicked now for 10 years. They've lost. They had a supermajority in the Senate and a supermajority in the House. They've lost over 20 state houses and governorships. They lost the presidency to a fool. And so whatever it is that the Democrats are doing, they better do something differently, or they're going to become part of history. It's as simple as that. And I promise I'm not going to knock the Democratic Party, because one of only 2 states that actually increased the Democrat majority and did vote with a pro-working family agenda was New Mexico. So maybe the country can look at what we're doing here in New Mexico and what we're talking about. And in New Mexico, Nevada, part of that's going to be the fact that Labor was standing with the Democratic Party here. Labor members in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Ohio, and in Michigan voted the majority for Donald Trump. They voted against the best interest. That was the mouse voting for the cat. And that's because whatever the Democrats were saying to them, whatever HRC was saying to them, I'm not going to relive the old HRC party fight, I can't go there. But whatever they were saying to them, they weren't hearing it, or it was the wrong message. And Democrats need to really look at the message. To go out and say we're going to listen to them, that's great. You need to take that and develop it in a message that working families are hearing, because they're not hearing it now, and they're voting for the worst possible alternative. I don't think Americans are racist. I don't think Americans are sexist, but they were forced to voting for a guy who they knew was racist, who knew was sexist, because when it came right down to it, you know what you're going to vote with? Not your heart, your belly. And if you're not feeding your belly, if you're not putting food on the table, they're not going to vote with you.
Wow, okay. Well, I think that's time. The next question is for me, and or all of us will answer it.
You want to answer the first one?
Oh, Jesus. All right. So John stole some of my thunder. One of the things that I had wanted to mention was that actually it's not the last 10 years. It's since 1965. The Democrats have been losing election after election after election. Back in 1978, the GOP, the Democrats controlled 60 to 70% of the House seats. And in 19 Senate seats, and they controlled 31 state houses, both chambers, in 1978. And today they control only 11. And so that's a significant drop over a 30 or 40 year period. And I think that the same trend holds for voter registration. And one of the things that this coincides with is the party's adoption of a range of neoliberal policies and what I would call the abandonment of working people and poor people. The slide coincides with our embracing NAFTA, subsequent to that, to the TPP, and a waltz with Wall Street. That's not a coincidence. If we're going to learn anything from 2016, it is that America is desperate for change. This is expressed in GOP voters embracing a lunatic, but a lunatic who promised change. And it's expressive in the Democratic primaries with a whole raft of new people getting energized and supporting Bernie Sanders. Progressive candidates are also winning local campaigns all over America. Look at what happened in Colorado Springs, where a Tea Party town ousted its city council and replaced it with progressives. That was just a few months ago. That can happen anywhere, but it requires bold leadership and policies and strong, specific commitments. The party needs to stand proudly for Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ rights, path to citizenship, etc. Okay, I actually had the nerve to pick this question. Do we need to heal the Hillary-Bernie breach? And if so, how? Roxanne and I have debated about whether I should bring this up. Yes, I'm answering now. We had a meeting, a handful of progressives this last weekend at Richard's house with Ben Ray Lujan, and several people brought this up and said, it's the elephant in the room. We need to talk about it. We need to resolve it. There's a good reason why there's a lot of resentment on both sides. The entire primary was one hostile Facebook accusation after another, and some of us lost friends over it. It was not fun. I would surmise that most Hillary supporters to this day feel she would be president if the Bernie wing had been more active in the campaign and hadn't provided so much criticism of Hillary during the primaries.
Yes.
I would say that most Bernie folks feel that if the DNC and HRC hadn't tilted the scales in the primaries, he would have won the nomination and he would be president. It doesn't really matter if either of these feelings are accurate. They are held very strongly by many of us. But one thing I would emphasize is everyone in this room would crawl all over broken glass to have either of those people president right now. So as much as resentment, we harbor this resentment, it isn't going to really do us any good. So, and 7 months of the Trump presidency ought to be motivation enough for us to do everything we can to move past it. The policies on the board over there are good reason to unify and work together. We have far more about which we agree than which we disagree. Let's work together.
So,
Go ahead, John.
yeah, this will go well. The Democrats picked the right candidate. They picked the right candidate, Hillary Rodham Clinton, because she was a Democrat mainstream candidate. The person that made the mistake here was Bernie Saunders, because he's no more a Democrat than I am. That he should never have ran the Democratic Party for the nomination. He should never pretend that he's a Democrat. I don't pretend he's a Democrat. He didn't even pretend he was a Democrat for 12 years. And all of a sudden, he got all these consultants and everybody else that came in. I know because we had the first organizing meeting for Bernie right next door at my office here, 6 months before he decided he was going to run for the Democrat nomination. He should have run his third party. 3 candidates up there with decent funding there, and Bernie would be our president right now. But the Democrats chose their right candidate. They were never going to turn it over to a socialist who joined the party for convenience. Bernie made the mistake. We should just get over this and move on and learn that we cannot do this anymore. We cannot simply take a flag of convenience because there's a system set up right now for two parties. We need to come up with a way of getting our own candidates and putting them in front of the people. I'm with the Working Families Party, which is a party that has been is funded by 3 major unions here. There's 30 states have got the candidates in there. We plan to be the Tea Party for the Democratic Party. We plan to put candidates up there in Democratic primaries that are going to force this party to consider putting the correct candidates in there. And if you think we can't do it, we did it right up that hill in 1997 in CD3 when we had put a Green Party candidate up and got enough votes to take down a right-wing Democrat. We got Tom Udall, who's now one of the most liberal senators there, and we got Ben Ray Lujan because of that. You would have had Eric Serna, and he would still be your congressman, and you wouldn't be as proud. If you had a problem with Ben Ray Lujan, you'd have a lot more problems with Eric Serna if he'd been in there. But we ran a candidate up there, and we took out a Democrat because the Democrat wasn't left-wing enough for us. And so it can be done. It's been done right here in this district, and that's what we need to do. And with all due respect to these 2 Democrats on either side here, if you don't like what the Democrats are giving you, run another candidate. But Hillary Rodham Clinton was a Democrat candidate. She had her office back here. Bernie was right in here. We were proud to have the 2 of them because, as Paul said, we would do anything to go back and refight this with anyone. By the way, Joe Biden was my candidate.
You want to take a shot at it, Richard?
Yeah, I do. Talking about it and having meetings like this and discussions is a great way to get over your divide. And the second way is to realize our core values. The core values of the party are that we should help our neighbors, and government should help our neighbors and our families when they can. Oh, Representative Crawford Hill, I want to recognize him while he's here. And Commissioner Anna Hanson. Thank you. My left eye doesn't see, so that's a bright spot for me. Anyway, back to what I was saying. That's our core value is helping people efficiently, fact-based, when it can be done efficiently. When you begin with that understanding, you then can move on out to how you do that. And sometimes you're going to have values conflict as to this does this and this does this, and these 2 objectives are conflicting. And sometimes you're going to have discussions as to what is good. But at least when you start at that point, you do get to have a conversation that has a common basis, and you can have a reasonable discussion as to which idea is a better idea, how do you balance the conflicting set of positions. The other thing I found that helps a great deal in healing everything is getting out there, starting to canvass, and starting to work on electing good candidates and recruiting good candidates. My experience is that when you start using the backbone, the jawbone gets used a whole lot less, and you get a whole lot more done.
We'll start with John on this because it's a labor question. From labor's perspective, what are the 2 most important things that the Democratic Party could do to ensure victory in House elections in 2018?
Well, I think the single most important thing is to put up decent candidates we can believe in. There's a big difference between a candidate who says they're with you. Look, the Democratic Party, I'm not here to criticize the Democrats. I promised everybody I wouldn't do that. But the Democratic Party of New Mexico, it's almost a thought when somebody says that, right? The Democratic Party of New Mexico, to me, has become the Smithsonian Party. This party is led by John Arthur Smith, and is led by conservative fiscal policies, which may as well be Republican policies in there, in the Senate Finance Committee. 2 of the Democrats in the Senate Finance Committee are members of ALEC, and they will come back and they will put ALEC agendas and items in there. One of them, by the way, is running for, we have 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat. They all call themselves Democrats, but 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat running for land commissioner. Horrible. But one of them's a member of ALEC. But we need to have decent candidates who will not just listen to labor, who will go there and vote with Labour's best interest and their, so, I'm not touching it. We'll vote with Labour's best interest because we need to get people in there that won't just come and see us as an ATM, and that's how people see us right now. I'm quite honest with you. People see Labour as an ATM that our purpose is to fund democratic campaigns, and afterwards they don't have to talk to us for 2 or 4 years, and that's not going to happen again. They just got to get past this and go for it. The second thing is, I'm sorry, no criticism intended, but as I look around this room, I see an awful lot of older Anglo people. I almost said white, but we're going to stop saying that. Older Anglo people, we need to reach out into the communities, and we represent in Labour large communities of colour, large communities of younger people, large communities. There's unions in here, CWA for example, because they run the call centres, but you're a majority woman. You need to reach out and get these people involved in there, because these rooms need to look more like New Mexico, more like America. That's the two things I would suggest the Democratic Party needs to do.
Okay, I think that should work to pass my mic over to him. Do you want to go, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I think you can go.
Okay. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier was that the party has lost strength and lost elections over many decades now. FDR created unemployment insurance, put America back to work after the Great Depression, created the National Labor Relations Act. His entire success in 1936 was because he had the strong support of labor. JFK and LBJ had the Great Society, but we've strayed from that, and there's a big reason why labor has lost its enthusiasm. Maybe not the unions, but the membership. The membership voted for Trump. And part of that is, if you look at the last 2 Democratic presidents, we had NAFTA, we had fierce advocacy for the TPP, and we had an array of neoliberal policies. As a result, since 2008, we've lost 5.5 million jobs, and 5.5 more Americans live in 5.5 million more Americans live in poverty, and the median household income has declined by almost 5%. At the same time, corporate profits are at the highest level since 1929. The effective tax rate, corporate tax rate, is the lowest since Hoover, and workers are taking home the smallest share of the national income in 65 years. That is an awful trend. Is it any wonder that labor has strayed from support for the Democratic Party? I mean, I got to tell you, the better deal is a good start, but it mentions $15 hour wage, family leave, a commitment to rebuilding infrastructure, but it does not even use the word labor. Campaign promises are one thing, but we've had campaign promises in the past, and I think it's important that the Democratic Party begin to stand for policies that support working families and the poor.
So there are a number of ways for the party to work with labor. As county chair here, I sat regularly on the Central Labor Council. I met with labor on the strategies for the legislature, and we actually used the county email list organization to lobby for some labor bills, both in the city council and the state legislature. That needs to be expanded greatly, and as we strengthen our infrastructure around the state, hopefully we'll be able to put pressure on the representatives who are in Republican or more conservative districts. And so meeting and working with labor is one of the things we have to do. The Democratic Party doesn't exist as a strong party without labor, and we have to make that a two-way street. The second thing mentioned was candidates. Good recruiting is crucial. In 2014, frankly, we lost the state legislature on filing day. In 2016, we won it on filing day with really strong candidates who've been recruited in a process that at the recruiting stage and name stage included labor and all the other groups that would be active in a particular area. Now, I do need to say that as we're reaching out to people and talking to people, tending to define grassroots as progressive and listening to people. And sometimes those grassroots aren't going to quite elect the same people in one area as another area. And at some point we need to respect that process. Maybe we can lead it more and change it more, but the party doesn't get to say who's going to run. The party, in fact, is supposed to stay neutral in who runs. We can recruit candidates, but then you're on your own. So it's going to be about grassroots. It's going to be on who knocks on doors and who elects the candidates. And ultimately, if we're going to have a seat at the table and we're going to elect and pass things, we, whoever we want to define we are, have to be the ones who have a great say in electing those candidates. We have to do the work.